empower students to see their biggest passions as an advantage in the modern job market. So before we start, let's go ahead and introduce everybody. You guys can go ahead and go one by one. We could start with Kevin.
We never start with Kevin, but hi, everybody. Kevin Brown. I'm the Esports Program Specialist with the Orange County, California Department of Education and with NASEF.
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Victoria. I'm a partnership and community manager at Hamel. Previously, I worked at Streamlabs, and I'm also a partner Twitch content creator. And I was a student. I just graduated like last year. I went to University of San Diego, University of California, San Diego.
And hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Anton, and I'm Chief Operating Officer for the North America Scholastic Esports Federation, or NASEF, along with Kevin. And we really are a network of educators, students, coaches, building up a scholastic esports ecosystem. So really excited to be here today.
Okay, I'm Doc Haskell. I'm the head coach of esports at Boise State and a professor here. And I'm just here to learn from these folks.
Awesome. Glad to have you guys here. We have 30 minutes, so let's go ahead and jump straight into it. I'm gonna try to section off different topics. And for everybody who is in the chat, we wanna bring as much value as we can to you guys. So if you have any questions, go ahead and start leaving them in, and we could get to them in the middle of our conversations. So the first thing I want to ask you guys is, what's your approach not only as educators, but as mentors, leaders, and role models to help students to find a direction towards where they want to go in the industry? Usually there's a lot of different paths, and for some students, they don't even know what those paths are. So we could go one by one, and I would love to hear your thoughts on empowering students. Kevin?
This group is going to be way too polite. Nobody's going to jump up first. So
I realize
at the risk of sounding like I'm just promoting NASEF, anybody that goes to our website sees this wonderful infographic we have, and it describes this ecosystem of esports. Great place to start. Typically, we think it's all about the thumb monkey in the middle playing a game, but there are 4 or 5 domains, generalities that we've been able to tease out that fall into different kinds of work, 15 or 16 different jobs that run up against any state's career tech education pathways. So for kids who get into gaming in particular, don't find themselves attracted to other classical core courses or traditional sports, but they like what goes on in esports and they see the different working parts, it's great for us to be able to show them that there is an actual career pathway tied to the things about which they're passionate. If you love fandom art and cosplay and multimedia, there's a pathway that your state actually pays for, teaches you, that leads to industry certifications where you can find meaningful work in that. So I'll stop for a second. Sam is nodding. I'll let her pick up.
Yeah, I mean, specifically for NASEF, and we work mostly with high schools, but then there is that arm of working with the teachers directly on helping them get the resources and the support that they need to build out their programs and their clubs. But really, it's about giving kind of validation to the work that they're already doing and taking it the next step further. So if you already notice your students are interested in throwing tournaments, hosting streams, getting sponsorships, those are all things that really do have career pathways tied to it. And there are some students that will pick up on that right away, but then there's some students that you need to have that conversation with them to say, hey, this work that you're doing, does take you in this direction. Maybe you should pick up these classes next year. Maybe you should look into these other places online to explore that more, because for a lot of students, they don't really think about that for themselves until they're applying for college and they're thinking about what they want to major in. And really, your career pathway journey is something that's going to change from year to year. And so it's about how you take and understand what you like and what you're excelling at, and thinking, hey, where can I take this that's going to maybe give me a career that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on what Sam is saying, and just like as someone who just went through kind of going through school and then entering the workforce, I think even like for high school students, as someone who just graduated college, like what you decide to end up majoring, you might have to change that as well. So I think instead of kind of molding into a specific person you want to be, you should be true to yourself and kind of let whatever job that fits you chooses you. I think you know, when you think about esports, everyone thinks like, oh, I have to be really, really good at games, and I suck. But you know, there are other qualities that I can contribute to the esports community and to the esports market that are not specifically game related. Going back to what Kevin said about like there are multiple routes that you can take. I think even before you even think about that, just kind of think about what you like to do or what makes you happy and what you're good at. Because ultimately, doing things that you're good at will seep into your career and it'll seep into your success and it'll help you find your pathway.
And I'll just throw in that empowering students is asking them to do something, not waiting for them to tell you what it is that they've already decided is 100% perfect, but asking, hey, do you mind doing this for us tonight? Do you mind jumping down at this station and just being our mod for this stream today? And let them try a number of things. Let them discover some different things. You'll find that they're not great at some things, but incredibly passionate about others. When you go to school, it's about kind of discovering what it is that that makes you happy and makes you tick. And I think that anybody who's leading that process continues just to ask students, hey, will you try this? Give this a shot. And those passions and career pathways come from those experiences.
Yeah, I think definitely like make those mistakes while you're still in school, while you're still young. It's better to get those out of the way first rather than making all those mistakes when you are being paid to do something that you're supposed to do. I think the consequences are much more costly. So there's no, I would definitely say like try as many things as you can because, you know, screw up when you still can.
Yeah, I think it's really important to facilitate these conversations with the students and making sure that they feel comfortable with failing. I know for myself as a student, I graduated about like 2.5, 3 years ago, that I was given the opportunity in college to fail a lot. And like Victoria said, it's a great place for you to try out different things. I even switched my majors too. And it was just because you had to really follow what you like. And so don't find any fault in that. What kind of I know that when we had our pre meeting, we talked about asking good questions to help students realize what they like to do. I think Doc was the one that mentioned it. What kind of are your favorite questions to ask when talking with students to help them think through what they might want to start approaching as their career path?
And I think about this every day. I mean, there are things that we do that we want to do. There are things that we do that we've been asked to do. And I always ask students, especially, what is the thing that you can't stop thinking about, that you are so excited to be able to get to? What's the thing that you really want to discover and learn that's out there? Let's put that at the top of your to-do list. We'll get to the other stuff. But if something doesn't wake you up in the morning and get you out of bed, like, oh, I can't wait to fix this, or I really want to discover this, then we've prioritized things in a weird way.
And I think in kind of a similar, actually not really similar, I think it's helpful too to look at what the students already kind of delved into that they did try and maybe they weren't successful at. Specifically, I know that there are students within NASEF where they really wanted to make it on the Overwatch team, and it wasn't so much that they are super amazing at the game or that they want to be a professional player, but they wanted to be on the Overwatch team. That was the reason why they wanted to be on the team, not so much to be competing, but to be amongst them. And so with one of those students in particular, they actually went on to be kind of like the streaming lead, shoutcasting person. And so in many ways, they're still a part of the team and still a part of that community, but they weren't able to prioritize to say, okay, I'm going to really focus on becoming so good at the game that I can make it on the team. Instead, it was just shifting his focus to say, okay, well, what specifically are you looking to do? And then really capitalizing on those things.
Mm-hmm. I want to definitely talk about that after, because I heard, I saw Joe's comment about how our students aim towards game development because there's not a lot of resources or there's not a lot of discussion talking about game development. And I love the fact that we also talked about that there's way more to esports than just the teams and being a on-screen talent. There's so many other different routes. And so could we talk a little bit and have a discussion about the different jobs that are available in esports that aren't actually so obvious and that are completely good jobs to have?
Let's do that. I just replied in chat to what Joe asked, but let's just talk about game development and simulation. So he's a game dev asking about, is there a pathway for that? Sure. State of California, many other states in the nation have career tech education pathways funded through a national grant called the Cal Perkins Act. These different pathways focus kids on particular career pathways. Great. So you're learning game design and you're thinking you want to get in, you want to build the next new thing, you want to go work for Blizzard. But then you go to college career night and you realize you got a thing for biomed, like Doc was saying. You go, you try something, you go, oh, wait, there's a merger there. If you can design something 3D using Unity or Maya, you can make 3D characters. You can also replicate molecules and DNA strands and go to work in a biomed industry, working with leading scientists to create the next new nanovirus or nanovaccine. So there's a way to put what you think is esports out into community doing something different with a pathway you might have started early in high school.
I definitely want to follow up on that. I think gaming is one of the most versatile industry out there. We have, first we have entertainment, which is like, video game development or things like that. But we also have the tech side of things where people are making, technological tools, whether it be software or hardware. So there's definitely like, electrical engineer, like STEM related fields involved. And you also have like more on like the social side of things, being an esports journalist or being a writer of some sort. So I think, even within esports or gaming, sorry, one more thing, there's also like, on the business side, for example, I do partnerships, I do business development, but I also do like community management. I mean, these are all like very interdisciplined jobs that you can have within gaming. You can also be a product designer, or it could be a product manager. That's more on like the STEM side. Again, it's kind of like in between, but you could definitely work in tech, but still be in gaming, or you could be in entertainment and still be in tech and still have something to do with gaming. There's just like so many things you can dabble into just with gaming.
Yeah, Doc, I know you come more from the coaching and player development side of esports, and I know for a fact that there is way more to in terms of jobs than just a player, coach, and manager. So I want to hear your thoughts on all the other things that exist out there.
You bet. We have about 100 students involved at the varsity level, and only 30 of those are players. So when you think about it in those terms, some of those are analysts, people who are just very, very interested in the game. We have scouts, and not talent scouts, like actually opponent scouts, and we meet regularly with those students. We obviously have a big broadcast team. For those who don't know, I'm just sitting on the floor of our broadcast studio here. And we spend probably 30 to 40 hours a week in here creating content. And we need storytellers, we need line producers, replay directors, observers, people who want to get better at little jobs in the sphere that they love, in the same way that people did 30, 40 years ago because they loved football or baseball, but they didn't play that game well, but they got into broadcasting or to storytelling or writing. We have 3 students whose only job is to write content, short 300 to 500 word pieces on a player, or recapping a game that happened, or editorials. There's so many different parts of what we do just to tell the story of what happens with these kids.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that too. And one thing that is super important to this industry is education, is the educators, right? There, you as a student, students can become teachers as well. And I know a lot of students, especially in collegiate esports, are leaders themselves who do a lot of different work and wear many different hats. And once they come out into the industry, they could also help educate not only the generation that's younger than them, but also the generation that's older than them, to tell them like what's going on in this industry too. And it's a very important job that everybody on this panel is doing, and everybody that's going to be on future panels is doing as well.
Yeah, if I can actually add on to that, Peter, I think when we talk about esports careers on panels, we think very specific to the industry, but really esports and gaming can kind of accelerate your interest in any career pathway. And so, Kevin and I do come from the nonprofit side, so that's really different than, for example, Doc, who's under the university system. We navigate the world in different ways, but we're still using esports. And so really when, you're doing activities and goal setting with students who are interested in working in this space, if they learn how to run something like a tournament, that doesn't mean that they have to become a tournament operator. And it doesn't mean that they have to keep doing the tournaments because they have done it once. As a person, when you are in any job or learning any skills, there comes a point when you have learned everything that you can or that you want from it. And then it's time to move on. And, with a lot of us, especially in the esports space, kind of, being in this 20 to 30 age range, there might come a point even in our own careers where halfway through we decide, hey, I don't need to be fully in the esports industry. I may take my work elsewhere, but that doesn't mean that everything that I've done in esports and video games is irrelevant to where I take that, because esports is esports, but it's also the STEM field. It's also the entertainment industry. So we esports can be its own bubble, but really it's not its own bubble. It's always interwoven with everything else out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to add on to that. Like what Sam said, esports is not just like one thing, but also it's totally okay to explore your other field and your passion elsewhere and then come back to esports later. So a lot of what we're seeing right now, or at least what I'm seeing in the professional workforce, is a lot of times companies would rather prefer to hire someone with like big corporate experience first, so that they could bring those experience and bring it back to gaming. So it's kind of like you can still explore your passion and pursue that first, enhance your skills, and then come back to gaming later, and in that way you're kind of like benefiting the gaming industry by bringing a new set of skills and a new set of mind as well.
Yeah, that's what's so beautiful about esports, right? Our industry is so new that we're kind of like a melting pot full of different technical expertise from different industries. Like what I was telling you guys the other day when I was working in production in esports, there's a lot of crossover from film and television. And we learned how to create awesome broadcasts from these people from a different industry that, has some similarities. So I think with that being said, we have definitely showed you guys the potential of jobs in the esports market by challenging and breaking these stereotypes of jobs in esports. And there's not only like 5 things that you can do. So go out there and explore. And I think educators can also do that as well to help students understand what their potential is and how to align their passions with a job opportunity that may or may not be in esports. Speaking about that, though, for which soft skills and hard skills should be emphasized by educators to teach students? Because I know when we go to school, we learn what we learned our required courses, right? But sometimes not all of it is applicable in the real world. And I've learned from working in the industry that a lot of things that I didn't get to learn in school, I definitely needed, like organizational skills, communications, teamwork, logistics, all of that stuff is not being taught. So we could go each person, which type of hard or soft skills do you think we should be teaching more of to students to set them up for success?
I can go first. So I think 2 things, aside from what Peter mentioned. I think, knowing how to code and being data driven are definitely 2 skills and 2 qualities that you could apply to anywhere. And I can't stress enough on how important it is to be data driven, because every single decision you make, wherever you go, you need to report that progress. And I've been in the influencer marketing side for a while, and like, believe me, I think even to this day, I think like, presenting your progress in data is still something that like many of us still struggle with. And at the end of the day, even if you're working for a nonprofit, if you're working for a company, they're all looking for like results. They're looking for ROI. They're looking for something in return. So being very data driven not only helps with that, but it also helps with just like working internally. I think it's so important. I wish I knew a little bit earlier before I entered the workforce, but yeah.
100% agree. Doc?
I would, and the chat's been doing a really good job of kind of throwing some things in here. But we talk about soft skills and college, especially, but even secondary is a collection of like framed experiences. So there's no class that you're going to learn all of the time management skills that you're ever going to need. I mean, you hopefully you're demonstrating those across by the framing of the whole experience. But just going to class, just studying for your test, just passing your classes is never sufficient to really launch you into a career. I've always been a big believer that you go to study someplace not because they have a monopoly on the knowledge, because knowledge to a large extent is free. But what you do is you choose a campus, you choose a team, a place, someone to study with, because you want access to their world. You want to know the people that they know, to make those introductions, to learn what's important. And you only do that if you go to a place and you actually engage. For high school kids especially, spend extra time with the teacher. Ask what they can do to help build up the program. Is there anything I can do? I'm really excited to do this. Do you mind if I do that? Can I create a new logo? Use your passions to benefit your teammates, your program, and you'll get a lot back in that process. So the skills maybe that are missing can be learned simply by engaging and not waiting for someone to bring it to you on a plate and say, well, here's what you need, right? You really do have to go out and find it. The most successful people in any industry always do.
Take initiative.
Yeah.
Yep. Samantha?
I would probably add skills that I have that I didn't learn like when I was in school is probably customer service, just the ability to communicate with people and, not sales customer service specifically, but specifically when you are kind of doing whatever to make sure that the customer is happy and heard, and, their problems and concerns are validated, I think is really important. And I think, that's something specifically that, you won't necessarily teach a class on customer service, but when you are talking about running your events and, reaching out to other businesses, you can talk about how you communicate with them, email etiquette, all those things that we kind of just learn if we get lucky, like just kind of the way to learn how to swim, when you just get pushed in the water. I feel like that's kind of learning how to communicate with people sometimes.
Evan? Oh, you're muted.
I think Sam's got the button for that to make sure I stay short. It's Doc and Sam are saying things that come from my career. So before I was an educator, I worked 20 odd years in hotels and customer service. I just did a lecture about this last night with a group at a local college, that it's all about this idea of anticipatory customer service, thinking about how can you put yourself in the other person's shoes. This speaks to the whole issue about inclusion and equity and equality. I mean, viewing the other as equal. Somebody was mentioning in chat this idea about mindset. Just settle down, buckle in, tune in with yourself, tune into somebody else. I'd like to really camp on though with what Doc said. I teach kids now about embracing FAIL, first attempt in learning, that you really don't fail. I like that. Here, try something. I need you to do something. Run down to the floor and take care of this. Put that headset on. Just shout into that camera where the red light goes on. And they panic. And it's not always great. But that fail gets you incremental learning. Even if you didn't do your best, you learned something else. Maybe you learned what not to do. Still valuable, still important. Yep. And that can help change an attitude about, you hate your scores on a leaderboard. Oh my God, I'll just never play mainline again. I hate this. Okay, maybe not for you. You've made a decision. Now you can pivot and do something. So failure is a friend. And I think in high schools, particularly because there's such an emphasis, got to get into college, stay away from career tech. Oh, you got to get into a university. To do what? You're going to experiment and do things there anyway. So let's embrace failure and know it's okay. It's still a teachable thing.
Yeah. One more thing I want to add, and this is like a quote that my colleague says to me all the time, but he says, don't mistake motion as progress. So yeah, like, you could do so many things. You could fail as many times as you want, but ultimately just make sure everything that you do contributes to your ultimate goal, and that everything that you do, there's a purpose there and there's a reason why you're doing it. And don't don't just like blindly jump in, but like, you know, take a moment and think about it first.
Yeah, having a process is everything, and failing forward is a really good advice too. I think just one thing for me personally that I think everyone should learn is just business in general. Like you don't need to go to a business class or have an MBA, but because you are working for companies, you do have to know exactly what is the business that you're working for. Like what are their goals? What are they trying to do, right? Like Victoria was talking about data analytics. You have to know how that converts into something that's actionable and something that impacts the business in a positive way. So if anything, just learn business in general and how it works.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe there's a little bit too far away for some of you, but a lot of companies, or at least in my professional experience, one of the key metrics that they measure you as an employee is business impact, right? In the beginning, I was like, what does that even mean? But, you know, I think just having some like business sense and things like that, it'll help you sharpen your sense of contributing to business impact and things like that. So just echoing what Peter's saying here, I think that's really important.
Yep. And we have like 4 minutes left. So I kind of wanted to talk about ways that maybe, oh man, this is tight. But how can we create this community of empowerment? How can we make sure that everyone gets what they need? And I know this is really broad. So maybe I want to narrow it down to networking. I think in this industry, networking is huge. Sometimes it's viewed as a bad thing, but I don't think so. I think sharing your network, especially as leaders, as educators, is super important, pointing them in the right direction, handing from one mentor over to the other. So what do you guys, what are your methods for doing that? Or do you have any resources that you can point someone to so they can continue learning after this panel is over?
I mean, before networking was done a lot in person. If I was in a panel with y'all right now, you know, afterwards, hey, let's, you know, link up and really catch up and see what we're doing. But nowadays it's a little bit hard on the digital age. So I mean, in a way has made it easier, but also made it harder. It's made it easier because, you know, a lot of the initial communication and outreach could be done online, but sort of afterwards, you know, doing activities and spending time like bonding and stuff becomes a little bit harder. But I think, you know, somewhere to start for students is people around you. You know, people around you have shared interests, they have shared goals, they might like things similar or different from you, and anyone that you talk to, they will benefit you in some way or another. So, you know, don't just network because you see you want something from them, but take it as an opportunity to learn from everyone around you.
And I think being intentional too with networking is really important. So, you know, if you want to reach out to folks about something and, you know, maybe you're trying to break into the space, there is some soul searching to do for yourself as well before kind of putting out an all call and reaching out to folks. So making sure that when you are networking that you do have kind of a sense of what you're looking to get out of the person in mind. You know, maybe you are just looking to get introduced and, you know, start giving breadcrumbs, and then over time you'll develop something more. Or maybe, you know, you have an event that's coming up in a few months and you want to see if they would be interested. So just having a clear idea for yourself what you are looking to get out of the person you're networking with, and also being present for them too. You know, I think in general, sometimes when we're having conversations, we go into autopilot and we really lose that moment of I'm listening to you, I'm giving you my time. So I think for both sides, like if someone's reaching out to you and is interested in learning more, or if, you know, you're having like a mutual conversation, to be present and available when you do sign up or say yes to that networking opportunity, just because you never know, like you might run into that person again. And even if in that first moment you didn't know where that would go, this space does feel really small sometimes. And someone who I met maybe 3 years ago, randomly I see them again and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's been so long. So
yeah.
Cool. Well, unfortunately, sorry, Kevin. Sorry, Doc.
Sorry.
We are out of time. No, it's all good. This has, I hope, been very enlightening, been very valuable to everybody in chat. I hope you guys had a great time on this panel. Thank you so much for being here and taking the time to educate everybody else. I had a lot of fun. And so with that, if you guys want to continue contacting other people, there is a feature on the swap card site that you can do so to continue furthering your network and whatnot. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and we'll throw it to the next panel. Have a great day, guys.
Thanks.
Guys, bye.